Hare Krishna Prabhuji, the Bhagavans.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna devotees, we welcome all of you for the today's morning program Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Gaurachandra Gopinath Prabhu, and Prabhu will enlighten us on Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 14th chapter, titled The Story of King Vena, slokas from 16 to 18. Yes, Prabhuji, over to you, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you very much, bro. Just give me a second, Prabhu. Am I audible, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavatir Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome to today's Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 14, entitled The Story of King Vena. Text number 16, 17 and 18. You are able to see my screen, Shloka Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Satema vinashad vira prajanam shema lakshanaha yasmin vinasate nirtair aishwaryad avarohati. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. The sage continued, O great hero, for this reason you should not be the cause of spoiling the spiritual life of the general populace. If their spiritual life is spoiled because of your activities, you will certainly fall down from your opulent and royal position. Purport. Formerly, in practical all parts of the world, there were monarchies. But gradually, as monarchy declined from the ideal life of religion to the godless life of sense gratification, monarchies all over the world were abolished. However, simply abolishing monarchy and replacing it with democracy is not sufficient unless the government men are religious and follow in the footsteps of the great religious personalities. So, other slokas we will read as we complete the slokas. Let me offer my humble obeisances and prayers. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देगं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुधापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवां च श्रीरूपं साग्रजादा Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadudam Parijana Sakitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Anvitam Cha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshadharine महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रतायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरतसे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानो सुदे देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपा तमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनदारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं हरिः ओं तत्सत्। नमो विष्णु। Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity today to have the association of the Vaishnavas. I'm really grateful, and also I seek all the assembled Vaishnavas' blessings before I talk on this subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are two kinds of hearers of Bhagavatam. One is at the intellectual category, another one is in the realized category. Intellectual category, when I means people try to hear Bhagavatam to collect some information, storage of information, but they don't put it into practice. The second category is that person who understands Bhagavatam and apply in their life. Bhagavata speaker must be in the second category. If you see from the example of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami was selected to speak this Bhagavatam, whereas his father Vyasadeva, he wrote so much information. He had Vedas, everything, Upanishad, everything he wrote. Ideally, he should have been given, or his spiritual master Narada Rishi should have spoken this Bhagavatam. Sukadeva Goswami had the personal assimilation. In sense, he was a parrot of Radharani. He knew what is the absolute truth, and he has come as Sukadeva, Sukamuni. So I belongs to the first category. I collect information. I don't follow, practically apply in my life. But one day I'm hoping that I will follow by speaking. I will take some responsibility to follow. So whatever I'm speaking today, it's more on the intellectual platform. So please kindly bless me that one day I can also realize these words. Otherwise, it's like Hiranyakashipu speaking Bhagavad Gita. If you read Hiranyakashipu pastimes, when he convinces his family members, then if you just remove Hiranyakashipu Vacha, replace with Bhagavan Vacha, he will talk about soul and Atma. So anybody can speak philosophy, but it will not have impact unless you follow it. So I'm trying to follow the footstep of Mahajans, trying to learn and apply. So kindly bless me sufficiently. Today the topic, the theme which I chosen is the collective karma or leaders' karma also affects the followers. That's a theme running in these three slokas predominantly. So we will be seeing how a leader should be ideal king or politicians or whoever is the leader. If he's unholy, what will happen? That's what we going to see today predominantly. And today's purport, Prabhupada very clearly written, these monarchies have been abolished. That's not the solution. So what is that? Democracy cannot replace the monarchy, but the government and men are religious and follow footsteps of great religious personalities. Unless the conscious of the politicians or Krishna consciousness, then there is no use. Yesterday we have seen Pramod Nitai Prabhu explaining how Prabhupada was trying to write letters to Gandhi. He writes to letter to Nehru. He tried everyone and the politicians to become Krishna conscious. He tried his best, but nobody was listening to him. He wrote to Indira Gandhi. He wrote to many people. So Prabhupada's ideal guru, Jagat Guru, is trying to explain, convert entire people to Krishna consciousness. That is the root cause. Otherwise, they don't establish Varnashrama Dharmam, it will be difficult. So in Ramaraja, we say, oh, Rama ruled very nicely. So how did that happen? we see that they try to follow. They are all Krishna conscious. The prajas were Krishna conscious. That's why there was Ramarajya. Otherwise, it's difficult. So we will be further dwelling into that sloka. So Prabhupada talks about predominantly in this fall of many emperors. It is monarchy is abolished, especially if you see that this is predominant in European countries. We have Europe, yeah, England, and there is a Roman Empire. There are many empires. The monarchies were prevailing in those times. So if you see, take one example of those monarchies, one of them is Rome. Rome was very famous emperor. In the history, if you see that there are 5 reasons why this monarchies were fall down. As Prabhupada mentioned, they were God. Basically, they are not focusing on the Krishna consciousness. So first one, there are 5 reasons given. One is the show and luxury life. People were very keen to show off and luxury, simple living, high thinking. That's what Prabhupada propagates. But these people were entirely opposite. They want to show, but low thinking, high living, show and luxury life. That's brought them first reason why it is the emperor fell down. The second was the gap between rich and poor. So there was no middle class family. Now there somebody is big rich or somebody is poor. So this show and luxury leads to the second reason. There is a big gap between either people are rich or poor. There is no middle class. So that lead to slavery and kind of things like that. Only rich is becoming richer. Then the third one is when you obviously become rich, your Hiranyakashipu will become soft bed. You want to enjoy the opposite sex. So they were obsessed with that, and that's the main reason they were breaking basically our whole regulative principle. So then they abandoned their culture, art, whatever gives leads to the religiosity. Then the fifth one is that the welfare state means you don't need to work. Government will support of everything in case you lose job, or if you don't have house, then government will provide all the facilities. Life is for men to enjoy. There is no need to hard work like that. Now also still, some of the European countries, if you see that if you have jobless, the government will provide money. If you don't have house, they will provide you house. In fact, if you have 4 or 5 kids and you apply to the government saying my family is big, I have a lot of dependent, they'll provide you with the 5 4 house bungalow. But whereas a normal person who is having 1 or 2 kids, he has to struggle on his own because the government wouldn't provide any aid. So people use this rule as a misuse, and they try to have 4 5 kids so that they can have good facility from the government. So like that, there are people like even retirement, after retirement the government will take care. Medical is free. They don't need to struggle for the life, like that. So this kind of a mentality, government which propagated, finally it leads to fall of Rome. Similarly, this is currently prevailing in America also. Now it is more of a anything should have appeal, sex appeal, or something, everything towards materialistic. So it is not very far. The history will repeat. Any country which is flourishing without the God conscious, they will Prabhupada concluding that it has to be fell down, it will fall down. Government needs to be religious, otherwise there is no point in having this kind of politicians. So moving on to the 17th sloka, this is the theme of today's I've chosen. Is that the leader's karma, how it we are going to see in detail how this collective karma works. That's the theme of discussion for today. So here we see that king receives 1/6 of the karma of the praja. That's what Prabhupada is trying to highlight in this sloka. So I'll read the sloka, translation and purport. After that we can have a discussion. Rajan asadau amatyebhyas poradibihi praja nirpaha rakshanyata balim grahanam iha pretya cha modate. The saintly person translation. The saintly person continued, when the king protects the citizen from the disturbance of mischievous ministers, as well as from the thieves and rogues, he can, by virtue of such pious activities, accept tax given by the subjects. The pious king can certainly enjoy himself in this world as well as in the life after death. Purport: the duty of pious king is described very nicely in this verse. His first and foremost duty is to give protection to the citizen from the thieves and rogues as well as from ministers who are no better than thieves and rogues. Formerly, ministers were appointed by the king and were not elected. Consequently, if the king was not very pious or strict, the minister would become thieves and rogues and exploit the innocent citizens. It is the king's duty to see that there is no increase of thieves and rogues either in the government, secretary, or in the departments of public affairs. If a king cannot give protection to the citizen from thieves and rogues, both the government service and public affairs, he has no right to exact tax from them. In other words, the king or the government that taxes can levy tax sorry government that taxes can levy taxes from the citizen only if the king or the government is able to give protection to the citizens from thieves and rogues. The 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a description of the thieves and rogues in government service. As stated, Prajaste Bhaksha Ai Sayanti Milecha Rajena Rupanaha. These proud Milechas, person who are less than Sudras, present, representing themselves as kings, while tyrannize their subject. The and their subjects, on the other hand, will cultivate the most vicious practices, thus practicing evil habits and behaving foolishly. The subjects will like their rulers. The idea is that in the democratic days of Kali Yuga, the general population will fall down to the standards of Sudras. As stated, Kalau Sudra Sambhavaha. Practically the whole population of the world will be Sudra. A Sudra is fourth class man who is only fit to work for the three higher social class. Being fourth class man, Sudras are not very intelligent. Since the population is fallen in these democratic days, they can only elect a person in their category, but government cannot run very well when it run by Sudras. The second class of men, known as Kshatriya, are especially meant for governing the country under the direction of saintly person Brahmanas who are supposed to be very, very intelligent. In other ages, in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapara Yuga, the general populace was not so degraded and the head of the government was never elected. The king was a supreme executive personality. And if he caught by ministers stealing like thieves and rogues, he would at once have them killed or dismissed from service. As it was the duty of the king to kill thieves and rogues, it was similarly his duty to immediately kill dishonest ministers in government service. By such strict vigilance, the king could run the government very well, and the citizens would be happy to have such a king. The conclusion is that unless the king perfectly able to give protection to the citizen from the rogues and thieves, he has no right to levy tax from the citizen at his own sense gratification. However, if he gives all protections to the citizens and levies taxes on them, he can live very happily and rest peacefully in this life, and at the end of his life, elevated to the heavenly kingdom or even to Vaikunthas, where he will be happy in all respect. In summary, Prabhupada, if you want to understand this, the highlighted text, that's the summary of Prabhupada says, king can levy tax only if he is able to give protection to the citizens and they are able to follow Krishna conscious. Otherwise, he will go to hell and his followers also go to hell. If he is able to protect the citizen, then he will be elevated to kingdom or even Vaikunthas. That's the theme Prabhupada is talking about. And similar references we can find in Bhagavatam, where Prabhupada talks about how the karma of the citizens, one-sixth of the karma of the citizens, it affects the king. It is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, same canto, 20 chapter, text number 14. The king in his next life shares one-sixth of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. And also he shares the impious activities of the citizens. So the karma works little differently. There are something called corrective karma. When I say corrective karma, Prabhupada wonderfully writes, and everybody should read is purport. In that, Prabhupada writes that in the practical application, you can see this same principle. It's we think the kingdom is not there, it's not relevant anymore. No, Prabhupada writes in purports. Prabhupada purports are very amazing. He says the same principle can be applied to the parents and the spiritual master as well. If a spiritual master is not guiding his disciple properly, then he has to take the karma of the disciple. We have seen that many cases. How Prabhupada also one time told, I'm suffering because so much karma by my disciple, so I have to suffer as a pure Vaishnava. But still, he was showing the example. And similarly, it is applicable. This can be extended, this concept can be extended, collective karma, to a father or a mother, or a small group where you're leading. It could be a Bhakti Vrisha, or you could be mentoring somebody, or it could be a temple president if you want to extend it in context of devotees, or it could be any leader or any parent who is in the position, or a husband leading a wife, a family, a head of the family, even a small group. You can't say that it's not applicable to me. It's applicable to everyone, which is something we need to take care of in our practice of devotional life, that we should be very pakka religious in our sadhana, and also we try to motivate, encourage the followers also to follow. Otherwise, there will be a karma, even though there is no blood relation. Definitely, when you take a position, or when you take a responsible position, like a king, maybe at a small level, in the leader or somebody who is preaching, we need to take care of this. It does not mean that we should not take up any position, but we need to be cautious of this, and rest of things we need to leave it to Krishna. But there is some portion of it does affect. Sadhana of a leader affects the sadhana of the followers, because person more stronger than you can see that from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching, he turned everyone into devotees. Prabhupada made hippies into happies because of the purity. Not everyone go to America and sit chant in the same Thumbskin Park. They can convert it because of the purity. So that sadhana as a leader, one should practices and follows automatically, that benefit pass on to the members who've been trying to follow. So Prabhupada gives a wonderful practical application in his purport. Amazing purport, saying how the king receives 1/6 of the karma. This is one portion where we can know that from this purport. There is another quotation from Manu Samhita. The same thing is talked again, referring, saying that 1/6 of the karma goes to the king. So there is one beautiful story through which we can understand how this happens also. There's one time, this is the story of Alabandar, who is the guru of Ramanujacharya. Alabandar was, when he was Yamunacharya, he was called Yamunacharya as well. His father, Ishvara Muni, he went to North India, he went to Vrindavan. After that, he came back, and his child was born. So he remembered the Yamuna. Then he named him Yamunacharya. But Yamunacharya unfortunately lost his grandfather, Nadamuni, who was a great Vaishnava, as well as his father, Ishvara Muni. And he was like, very poor, and he was managed by his mother and grandmother. And he went to a place, his guru, where he was learning it. So those days, the Pandya king, he was in the province of Pandya king, which is in Madurai. So there was a king who lived, and he asked one court minister. He had a big pandita. His job is that he has to defeat all the panditas there in the area, and if they are not able to defeat him, then they have to pay tax. So of course, his guru, Yamunacharya guru, also been defeated by that Alohala minister, who has been challenging everyone in the uh, ministry. So, but for various reasons, his guru did not add money, so he did not pay. So the king had sent, the guru has sent, rather sent to Yamunacharya's guru, saying that you have to pay tax because it has been 2 years you didn't pay. You have been already defeated. So how dare you that you don't pay tax to my guru, like that. But that time his guru was not there. Only Yamunacharya was 12 years old. He was there, and he was get so furious that how they can harass this Vaishnava. And he said, no, we will not pay any tax. You go tomorrow. I will come and meet the kingdom, meet the king. Then I will argue with him. He challenged, Yamunacharya challenged, and his guru felt very bad, saying that you are just 12 years old boy. How do you defeat the get the argument? He said, don't worry, with your blessings I will do. Then next day, the king asked him to report to the kingdom. And Yamunacharya said, boss, you have to send me a conveyance, you have to send me palanquin. I can't just come because I'm coming to the royal court to challenge all of you. So you have to give the same equal respect of the Pandita. Then he goes and royally, and the king and queen having argument, saying that is this boy can defeat this our Pandit. The queen said, "Come, definitely he can defeat. I challenge you. I bet you that I will become slavery of slave if he is not win this Pandita. I am confident on this." The king also said, "Okay, I will also give half of my kingdom if this boy wins." Like that, they were arguing, and everybody's thinking what this boy is going to do. 12-year-old boy, how he's going to challenge his guru? Sorry, the other Pandita. Then the argument started. Yamunacharya could able to easily answer all the questions whatever he asked. Then it is turn of Yamunacharya to ask question. So he asked these three questions, Pandita to refute. He will make a three statement, and Pandita has to refute. The first statement is that your mother is not a barren, your lady. He has to refute that theory. If he refutes that, he is born out of his mother, so he can't refute that his mother is barren. But if you don't refute, then he is lost in the battle and the game. So he doesn't know. He said, "Get furious." He said, "What kind of questions you're asking? Immature questions. You go for next question." The second question, he says, the uh, the king is not virtuous. You have to refute that theory. The king is there in the Sabha, and if he has to refute the king is unholy, then he'll be killed by the king. If he doesn't refute, then he'll be losing the battle again. The third one he said is that the the wife is not chaste to his king. This is too much because in the court assembly, then you have to prove that a queen who is there in the Sabha that she is not chaste to his husband. These three hours, like you can't refute it, but Yamunacharya demanded you have to refute this if you won't win. Then Yamunacharya explains the first one is in the Shastras, it says that even though a mother has one son, she's still considered as a barren lady if she doesn't have more than one children. So that's based on Shastra that your mother is like that. The second one he says, this is the where king is unholy. He says the king is even though has all the virtuous, but he is sharing 1/6 of the karma of the citizen. So there are in Kali Yuga, most of the people are sutras, as Prabhupada explained, explaining rogues and all the words Prabhupada using it heavily right in the purport. So most of the citizen will not follow, then they will do some mistake, and that 1/6 of that will come. So even the king is personal conductivity, he might be holy. Since he's sharing 1/6 of the karma, he has to suffer. This is the main understanding we can get it from that. There is a collective karma works for the even for the king as well. So then the third point he told the wife is not chaste because the king is supposed to be considered as next to God, and most of them follow their command. And he is considered as equivalent to Varna, Chandra, Indra, or God. So there are many representations. So how a wife can be chaste to multiple representation? A king is represented in various roles. That's why he refuted these statements. So from this wonderful example and Bhagavatam 4:20-14, we can understand that the collective uh, karma works. It could be son and son father relation. If a son is like unintelligent or he is having a bad activities, it affects the father as well. Similarly, a father who has debt, and it also affected the son. And we see that when sometime when I was getting married, and people caution me, don't get married to a non-devotee, or you need to be strong in your sadhana. The reason, because when we get married, some portion of the karma comes to the husband of the wife. So if they are naturally devotees, no, it's our devotional service is progress. Otherwise, we need to be very, very, very strong in our sadhana to determine to follow whatever comes. So there are a lot of complications involved. We don't, when senior says that you get married to a devotee, things like that, it's very important to understand from this scientific perspective. Most of the time we take it at high level, but this is how the karma works. There is a collective karma works. But if there is one son like Prahlad Maharaj, it can deliver Hiranyakashipu, a father. Anybody in one family can deliver the entire 14 generations. So we see from this practically in this Bhagavatam. So it represents how we should conduct when person in the responsible position, either a Bhakti Vrisha or a devotee care person, or is a temple president, or it could be anybody who's holding some post in the temple, right? So they need to be very, very or a person in the house, or a father, son, unless we should not have kids, we are not able to deliver them or give them Krishna consciousness, and otherwise their karmas also affect us. This is a collective karma. That's how it works. So one should be very careful and at least attempt to increase their standards in the practice. So moving on to the 18th sloka, the last sloka for today. I will read the translation and purport, then we can have discuss. यस्य रास्त्रे पुरे चैव भगवान् यज्ञपुरुषः इजते सेवन धर्मेण ज्ञानैर्वर्णाश्रमान्वितः. Translation: The king is supposed to be pious, in whose state and cities in general populace strictly observes the system of 8 social orders of Varna and Ashrama, and where all citizens engage in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their particular occupations. The state duty, purport. The state's duty and citizens' duty are very nicely explained in this verse. Today we will be seeing more of a duty of a citizen or a leader, not a citizen, but actually duty of the citizen leader, how one should behave in more detail. So in this sloka, the activities of the government head or a king as well as activities of the citizens should be so directed that ultimately everyone engages in devotion service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The king or government head is supposed to be representative of Supreme Personality of Godhead and is therefore supposed to see that things goes on nicely, and the citizens are situated in this scientific social order comprised of 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. In the Vishnu Purana, it is stated that unless people are educated or situated in scientific social order comprised of 4 varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, and 4 ashramas, Brahmana, Grahastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa, society can never be considered real human society, nor can it make any advancement towards ultimate goal of life, human life. It is the duty of the government to see that things go on in terms of Varna and Ashrama as stated herein. Bhagavan Yajna Purushaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the Yajna Purusha as stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.29. Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. Krishna is the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices. He is also the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Therefore, he is known as Yajna Purusha. The word Yajna Purusha indicates Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna or any personality of Godhead in the category of Vishnu Tattva. In perfect human society, people are situated in the orders of Varna and Ashrama and are engaged in worship of Lord Vishnu by their respective activities. Even citizens engaged in the occupation rendered service by the resultant action of his activities. That is the perfection of life as stated in Bhagavad Gita 18.46. Yataha pravartir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam sakarmana tam abhayachya siddhim vidanti manavaha. By the worship of Lord, who is the source of the being and who is all pervading, men can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Thus, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Sudras, and Vaishyas must execute their prescribed duties as 3 duties are stated in the Shastras. In this way, everyone can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. The king, the government head, has to see that citizens are thus engaged. In other words, the state or the government must not deviate from its duty by declaring that the state is secular one, which has no interest in whether or not people advance in Varnashrama Dharma. Today, people engaged in government service and people who rule over the citizen have no respect for Varnashrama Dharma. They complacently feel that the state is secular. In a such government, no one can happy. The people must follow Varnashrama Dharma, and the king must see that they are following nicely. So one thing comes out very clearly in this purport of Prabhupada is emphasis on Varnashrama Dharma, which Prabhupada was trying to establish many times. He was trying to write every time, emphasizing this Varnashrama Dharma naturally leads to Bhagavata Dharma. See, the Varnashrama systems are established. The ultimate objective of the birth of human beings are only to execute devotion service. There is no other priority. There might be dharma, artha, kama, moksha, other things are there, but the slowly the Varnashrama Dharma, by following it, one should lead to Bhagavad Dharma. If that particular Varnashrama Dharma is not leading to Bhagavad Dharma, then what is the use of such a Varnashrama Dharma? If Varnashrama Dharma is established properly, then Prabhupada says that is sure to guarantee go back to Godhead, or this lead to Bhagavad Dharma. So today I'm going to, in this Prabhupada even though talks about Varnashrama Dharma, I thought I will talk about some of the characteristics or leadership qualities or a leader one should have. Not necessarily a person who are ruling the country. This is applicable in general for whoever doing it, whatever position they're preaching or holding some position. I have not attended this, especially the credibility program, which has been recently run, which Narahari Chaitanya Prabhu was recommending due to my office work. But I did hear from devotees. His Grace Rukmani Rangakrishna Prabhu kindly shared me some notes, and he summarized some of the key information, which I will try to share, because it is a really wonderful course and many devotees are getting benefited. And also I heard one of the lecture from Gauranga Prabhu on the management. So that summary of this is that this presentation for this 18th sloka, it's more of talk about how a servant leadership, now the leadership is changing, how to one should establish his credibility. That's very important for to have a good leader. So some of the points we will see that, and then we will open up for more question and answer. So the first point is that he says the leader motivation is the key factor for any of the leader to work. Now, the motivation can be two. One is internal, another one is external. For example, external imposed. For example, there is a lockdown, right? There are some, the leader cannot just say, all the time, motivate you give a very motivational speech. There is a pep talk. You give the leader always gives that, you should be positive. That never works anymore. When the situation comes of Corona comes, if let's say the leader talks about the be positive, people will not listen because it just the it will work only if there are external stimulus is not there, the motivational speech that will temporary. But the motivation is such a way that by developing establishing his credibility, is establishing his faith on the followers, then they automatically internally motivated to follow. For example, if we want to see that King King Dasarada in Ramayana, we see that he ruled over 60,000 years. But when he heard Rama was to be crowned and he will be the next king, and the Prajas were really jubilant. And Dasarada thought, my God, am I so bad ruler that people are waiting for me to dethrone and put Rama? No, the motivation for them is character, is love for the Prajas. He sees the established embodiment of Dharma. So people saw that this character, then the internally motivated. There is no external reason for them to do like that. The second one is that we can see that Prabhupada had waited for 40 years. What motivation he had? There is not no external motivation. In fact, there were a lot of obstacles for him to preach anything he tried. He got his instruction 40 years back. Prabhupada patiently waited. He prepared for 40 years to go to America and preach this. So what is that? We can see this is not motivation. Is the lot of people encouraging him, family was supporting, he had a lot of money, and people were listening. No, external where in fact it was against him, but this is only internal motivation. He has to follow his guru's order. That took. So the leader should have a lot of internal motivation. Also, it should install that internal motivation among the followers who are trying to do that. The other example is Bharat. He doesn't want to rule the kingdom, but on the insist of orders of his brother Ram, he said, "I will rule the kingdom." Externally he had he was mistreated. People were misunderstood, but still that did not harm him. But this internal motivation, when we develop this internal motivation, then people can do it. It's similar like. Leader also doesn't lose hope. Like we see that when it comes lockdown, then I remember only the Bhishma Pita lying on the arrow bed. He's also locked down. He's not able to move. Similarly, but when Krishna is approaching him, all the other people are assembled. They are inviting him, Krishna, through nice worship and things like that. Bhishma also want to invite Krishna like that, but he was in the bed arrow. He's not able to get up. But a leader might, during this pandemic situation, might lose his job, lose wealth, or his authority, or his relatives. There are so much difficulties, but he'll never lose hope. Pitama thought, what is the best I can do? I can offer prayers. By doing offering prayers, I can invite Krishna. So he started offering wonderful prayers. We can see Bhishma Stuti. So like that, a person needs to be internally motivated. Then internally motivated, whatever circumstances, like Bharat was chastised, misunderstood, he was mistreated, but still he had this internal motivation to follow. So this internal motivation, or this credibility, that's because of the credibility of the leader. He would automatically install this internal motivation. So some of the key points how the leader can do is that leader must respect the core team and not hide from them. So anything transparency with the core team, then they will have a faith. Leader must be inclusive. uh, Narari Prabhu always used to tell, take everyone along with you. We can never leave anyone, because it is inclusive. The movement is inclusive. Prabhupada did not leave anyone. So everyone may be different. That's a soul. The individuality is always will be there. So we need to ensure that everyone is we take along with us and we never leave. So we should be inclusive. Which leader should share fruits among the members. Leader to offer good facilities to the members. I remember when we see the temple construction was going on, and Narare Prabhu and other senior devotees were taking around us, and they were showing the facility. First thing, no, I thought Prabhu will take it to the altar. He took me to the place where the pujari facilities are there. See, I'm building this so that people can stay comfortably. Then they can do the temple worship, deity worship. So the importance was given to the devotees, how comfortably they can stay, how many steps they have to climb, they have to stay closer to the place of where the worship is happening. So the importance was given more to the people, how we take care of it. So this is the ideal leader who cares about the facilities of the members. Like that, these are some of the features which will create an internal, this credibility will increase the internal motivation. When internal motivation is there, like for example the Hanuman example is given. He was just asked to go and find Sita. He would have just done that, but he did extra. Always when we have people who can perform, internally motivated, he not only he found Sita, but he created havoc in Sri Lanka, so that he installed fear on the Ravana and his party. So they thought, oh, one monkey can do this. If there are thousands of monkeys, we are doomed. It created a kind of for them. So a person who is internally motivated, they do more than what we expect. They don't just do what we expect them to do. So this is one of the key point which we can learn ourselves and try to cultivate this habit of how to have internal faith. The second one is the dharmic leadership. A leader must be follow the dharma, and you need to be honesty, straightforward in his dealings. This will again increase the credibility. So the example in that Gauranga Prabhu gives in the seminar, that he compares Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Satrukhan to Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Rama is Lord, Ram is represents Dharma. So Dharma is the duty one supposed to follow. The Dharma is that we are the eternal servant of Krishna. Then our service, our position is servant. So Lord Ram is Dharma, and Lakshman Artha, the wealth which follows always Lord Ram. It's not that Ayodhya palace, it was opulence, he left everything, he came to forest. But the Artha is always to be whatever we earn, whatever we get, that should be used in the service of Lord Ram, which is in the Dharma, which is our constitutional position is to serve the Lord. So Lakshmana always, like a shadow, served the Lord Ram. So Lord Ram represent Dharma, the Artha represent Lakshmana, who is always needs to serve. Now, now there is another pair, Ram and Lakshman. Another pair is Lakshman, Shatrughan and Bharat. Bharatan represents liberation, and Shatrugna represent Kama. So you can see that the greatness of Shatrugna is that he would have also followed like Ram, like Lakshman. He said, "I also worship my brother." He loves Lord Ram very much. It's not that he can also would have like like Lakshman, he would have directly loved. But he thought, I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. Bharat is the great devotee of Lord Ram. My brother is a great devotee. Let me serve the devotee. Look at the mode. All of them have equal love for Ram. So all of them would have directly said, no, let me serve Lord Ram directly. No. Shatrughan mood was, oh, Bharata is such a great devotee of my brother. Let me do some seva. So the karma should be used in the service. Thinking that serving another Vaishnava. Our endeavors, our activities, everything dovetail towards serving the Vaishnavas. And Bharat represents again the liberation, uh, who uh, who sacrificed everything for his brother and still live a aesthetic life, and he ruled the kingdom on behalf of Lord Ram for some time. That represent his tyaga. So we can in this what we understand from this Ramayana, the four brothers, is that dharma, artha, kama, moksha. This all the things should be sorry, artha, kama, moksha. Sorry, kama, moksha, especially. Sorry, dana, the karma. Artha, kama should be deployed into the worship of the dharma, then our life will become perfect. And also, the leader should be real. I think I would stop here. It is already 8 o'clock. I'll just highlight some of the titles, and I'll open up for more questions. It should be more control and
You
vigilant.
can take another
In
10 minutes,
sense,
Prabhuji, no problem.
no, I'll just briefly stop it, and I'll open up for comments. So control and vigilant. The Bharata, when instructed by Lord Ram, any key important person is there, you should spy on them to see that they don't misuse it. Most of the time, when we give post and we forget it, it's not a credible person, then you can misuse it. That's one suggestion he's telling. Then power of personal character, how one should behave, exemplary way, walk the talk. Then you should be equanimity, you should be well balanced, you should be able to manage emotions and manage others emotions as well. Shift through your motives. You need to see why I'm doing this activity. Is it because I'm doing duty bound, I'm doing as a duty, or it is a competition or fear of somebody will take it, or jealousness, I'm doing this seva. We need to do it as part of a duty. So we are the leader should first one to change, not to the last. Any changes he's expecting, he has to do the first. He should lead the front. You should not say, oh, that devotee is not doing. I say, oh, okay, these devotees are like this, they will never do the like this. So instead of cribbing, complaining about somebody, you come forward and you be the first change. Then the automatic other changes will happen. One should be realistic and ideal. It's not that too positive about it, not too pessimistic about it. Sometimes devotees are too optimistic as well. That is also will hamper, because too optimistic, you are expecting something, then that did not happen, you will break. It is too pessimistic, then there is no hope for life. So you should be a middle path where one should be realistic on what's happening and should be idle. So in summary, to summarize, that we have seen in the monarchy, talking about Prabhupada in the 16th sloka, fall down of many monarchies. We have seen example of a Roman emperor. In the 17th, Prabhupada talks about the collective karma, which we have seen how it can be practically applied for family members, a person who is doing some seva in the temple, Bhakti Vriksha and DCS, like that. We have seen how collective karma works. An ideal leader, how one should behave. Some of the points we have seen it. So that's a summary of this three slokas so far we have seen. I open up for more corrections and comments. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class, and at the end, the summarization of all three things. And you have mentioned the practical applications also. Devotees friends are unmuted, and they can unmute and ask questions.
Hare Krishna, Gaurachandra Gopinath Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam Prabhu.
That's
Thank you for very, very nice class. It's the way to start the day. Thank you, Prabhuji. I have one question, Prabhuji. When you started the class, that time you mentioned there are two types of people who actually listen.
Bro, my internet is bad. I guess I'm not able to hear
Just
you.
for really.
Bro, I lost. You have to repeat. My internet was bad. You have to repeat the question again.
I think the problem is from the
I
Sankash.
think we also could not hear Sankarshan Prabhu.
Right, Sankash Prabhu?
Prabhuji, as a aspiring devotee, if I say in my case, when I read Bhagavatam, it's primarily in the perspective of understanding at the intellectual level. Application is not still taking place. How to understand this, Prabhuji? But still, sometimes I give class.
So, see, each one taught others while you've been learning. That is the mantra, right? So, a person cannot immediately become a perfect. So, but his goal is that even though he's not perfect, but the objective when he speaks that it's for my purification, and at least attempt sincerely to follow that. That should be there. It's not that I just collect information. I can do a nice presentation. I can eloquently speak. I can speak nice loka. What happens is this information, you will become Arjuna first chapter, he becomes so much confused because he was talking like Pandita. He did not ask Krishna, what should I do? He started quoting, I will not fight because of this reason, this reason. He started giving 4 or 5 reasons. Then Krishna first word he said, you look like a Pandita, but you are, if too much information will lead to confusion. If we are collecting at the intellectual level but we are not trying to follow it, you will become Arjuna and you will be confused. Even too much of information, it's another level of sense gratification, subtle level, but it's Srimad Bhagavatam, still it will have its effect. But I'm not saying it's wrong to learn, but most of the time we miss the aspect of how do we implement practically in the life. So one day overnight we will not become a pure devotee. It is a process, it is a journey we are undertaking. But Krishna sees how much endeavor one person is making to follow. That's very important. If there is no endeavor but simply a collection of information, then the progress will be very, very, very less. But still, it is Srimad Bhagavatam, it will have its effect, but the path will be very slow. But a person trying to endeavor, it's Krishna sees endeavor, our love and affection, bhakti, doesn't see what is that outcome, what is the result, what it came out. Krishna never sees the outcome of it. So he sees the endeavor. So unless we endeavor it, as long as that endeavor is there, then it's okay to do that. Let's say I'm giving a class today to very, very junior most audience or something like that. But when the seniors are there, they're trying to attend this class. They knew most of the points are. It's not that something which I spoke out of this thing. It's everything knows about it. Still, they hear for purification. They also try to correct the juniors like me. So what happens is I will have a lot of enthusiasm. Oh, I'm speaking this. I should follow. I've spoken in front of the elders, seniors, so then I need to try to follow. That commitment comes. It is for my purification. The teaching not necessarily, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not necessarily taught them. He told everything, then they followed it. Ramananda Rai, he speak about bhakti. Mahaprabhu's style was little different. He told little Rupa Goswami told the high level topics, but he asked him to expand more. If you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu way of teaching is he expected others to contribute more than he is talking or he is preaching more. He did not do much of the work. He just gave the gist and he asked others to expand and write more. Then he had that kind of thing. So like what happens when we give Bhagavatam, like juniors when they give the Bhagavatam, it's more for our purification and the seniors are there to correct. And we take seriously whatever we speak because we've spoken in front of a Vaishnava. So that way it is purifying process. So you should take it as that way, that mode, and try to do how much ever possible.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Did I answer, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. That gave a lot of clarity, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Krishna, Chandra Gopinath Prabhu. Thank you for wonderful class. Just one point, you spoke about mass karma. As a Bhakti Vishya leader, also you touched upon it. So, as we are also taking some service, so how much we should go, how much we should have, control on that, or what we should do.
See, you should not be like when I said that, oh, 1/6 of the karma goes to the king. So nobody should not take the king position. And Bhakti Vrksha members, it affects when collective karma means it's not that we don't do our. See, one thing is that what the point I'm trying to drive is that you become strong in your sadhana. You try to have a conduct good life, because the preaching is the more means, only means, I would say, for me especially, to progress in Krishna conscious life. If you don't preach, you are dead. There is no life in the body, because you don't grow. If you don't preach, you who then, unless you speak, I'm speaking today Bhagavatam, then I'll say try to follow some of the principles. When I preach, oh, I'm talking about holy name, let me also focus more holy name. If no preaching, there is no life, first thing. Second thing, we should not be worried that, oh, what preach, what will the karma will come, should I be bothered? See, you give it to Krishna, right? It is how you handle the karma. You do your duty, you make others also to follow. Rest of the things you leave it. But sometimes the kids, when we grow, we know most of the devotees have the same anxiety. My son is not becoming a devotee. What your son? Prabhupada, look at the Prabhupada son. They're also become, it's not that favorable as what Prabhupada expected. So this can happen. We try our endeavors, right? And give rest of thing to Krishna. Pass on our karma also to Krishna. When Guru takes the karma, he never holds himself. He pass it on to the parampara, and parampara gives it to Krishna. Then ultimately it goes to Krishna. Otherwise, imagine Guru has been giving initiation for so many devotees, and so many people who are been committed so much offenses. So it is very difficult. If you think that I am managing it, if you don't pass on the good and bad thing to the parampara, then you will have a problem. We have seen many practically. I've seen that some of the leaders who try to collect money. I'm not telling it's not right, wrong, but unless you proper utilization of the money without your sense gratification, personal use, you use it for Krishna service, they will become proper. Otherwise, they independently try to do it. I've seen that they fall down. That's because they're not able to give whatever comes to use it in Krishna service, give it to the superiors. So you should not be at all worried. In fact, you will get more mercy when you're connected. You're bringing more souls. The parampara is there. Imagine behind you Srila Prabhupada. Imagine behind you Guru Maharaj. Imagine behind you Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Imagine Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and through all the parampara, they are standing behind you. How much powerful we should be. When we start preaching, that power is there. When karma comes, you just try our best, and rest of things you hand over to them. So they will take care of it, so that we don't need to worry about it. Otherwise, if you think that I'm doing, you're trying to collect that, then this karma, collective karma, will work. Otherwise, it will not work. Pass on to the parampara.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thanks, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. I think there are no more questions, so we can end the class with the Vachana Pranam.
Ancha kalpatarubhasya kripasindevecha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Nandakodi Vaishnavindra ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very
Balaji Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
wonderful class.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.